Hi, my name's Ainsley Ward. I'm one of CGI's payment experts. I'm based in Toronto, and today I want to speak to you about one of the challenges that one of our clients placed in front of us with regards to the ISO 20022 MX migration, particularly with a view around being a correspondent bank. Now, the particular problem that this client had, they've got a significant heritage system that underpins their payment processing today. Now, this means that the challenge for them of migrating to MX messaging for Swift and for domestic is difficult because they have a lot of unbundling to do from their legacy network and from their interfaces and all the things around that, which means there's an awful lot of work to do. So what they're going to do in the time frame is they're proposing to use a translation system that enables them to process MT messages, but offer the capability to the market of working in MX. Now, one of the pieces that they discovered is that in order to do this from a regular endpoint or start point basis was pretty simple. You just take a message, you translate it, off it goes. Or a message comes in, you translate it, you process it. It's really that easy. However, when thinking about the conundrum that comes with being a correspondent bank, where you are obligated to process a message that may have come in a format that you can't necessarily handle and pass that back out the door again in the same format that it came into your bank, i.e. you receive an MX message and you have to send out an MX message. That's a lot more of a difficult problem because you're still processing in MT. Given that correspondent banking is probably the most highly revenue generating area of payments, this is of course a space that the bank didn't want to be missing out on, so they want to look for an effective solution. Now, one of the challenges is that they have to do sanction screening and other types of screening on inbound MX messages, so therefore they have to upgrade some of their software to do that. And that the capability of their payments processing platform is only MT. So they have to downgrade messages in order to patch them into that. So they use some form of translation engine to achieve the downgrade. They can then process it in MT as normal, but when the payment is set to go out of the door, that's when it becomes a bit more difficult. It's not just a case of translating the message back from MT to MX and sending it out the door. The big problem is that there may be information stored in that greater ISO message that can be stored in an MT message, which has to be reconstructed back into the translated version that's come out of the MT processing engine. And therein lies the challenge which the bank has to overcome. Not only do they have to translate the message that's come out of their MT-based system back up to MX, they also have to reconstruct the message using components that may have been the original message but were truncated when it was down translated in order to go into the MT processing system. So we have a problem here that we have a system that needs to rebuild an outgoing message based on input from two systems and reconcile them, assigning priority to the data and ensuring that any data that is included in the message is coherent with the ISO standards. So they need a system that's not only capable of storing the inbound MX messages in an XML format, so that's typically a more modern database, but also is capable of doing the translation, which is the relatively simple task, and the reconstruction, so a more intelligence-based task requiring some degree of machine learning and even some degree of AI, and potentially some degree of manual intervention in the early stages of the process. It's not necessarily a problem that every bank will meet, but certainly those that are retaining MT processing and were hoping that translation would be their savior, there is certainly a degree to building out that solution before November 2022 that may be more difficult for those banks that haven't started to consider it already. And that's where CGI can help. We certainly believe that we have the answers to a number of these problems.